Do you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist more than you like? Do you find that there's a pattern that it keeps happening? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 reasons why you attract narcissists into your life. And what you need to recognize that if this is a pattern of relationships that keeps coming and it keeps leaving you used and abused, and at the end your heart feels completely like squashed and broken, then to break this pattern, you have to first recognize why it's even happening. So I'm going to tell you the 3 reasons why you attract narcissistic relationships into your life. Reason number 1, you identify as an empath or you're a highly empathetic being. Now, why is this really relevant? An empath is someone who identifies as a person who listens to another person's emotions more than their own. Someone with a very sensitive nervous system which tunes into the energy of the environment, or more importantly, the energy and the emotions that somebody else is going through. Why does this match with a narcissist? Because an empath loves to be able to give attention and value to somebody else's emotions more than their own. Now, what does a narcissist love? A narcissist loves attention and loves somebody else giving them value more than they would give themselves. So you have the perfect combination of someone who needs the attention, needs somebody else to give them focus, needs somebody else to pay attention to their emotions, needs to be able to take care of their emotional state, which is a narcissist. And on the other hand, you have somebody who's the giver, somebody who loves doing all of those things, somebody who loves to give the attention, pay attention to somebody else's emotional state. And then in the process, unconsciously, what tends to happen is that the narcissist draws the empath in more and more, and unconsciously the empath allows themselves to be more used. They like to be used because that gives them value. For an empath, they like to be used and that makes them feel important. So when a narcissist recognizes this, they start to see that by tweaking their own emotional state, that they can actually even tweak the empath's emotional state, and they can draw the empath further and further in. Say for example, a narcissist comes back at the end of the day and recognizes that by them feeling frustrated, they find the empath trying to run to their help, to try and solve their problems, to try and make them feel better, to try and give and give. So the narcissist takes and takes. Now, if the narcissist recognizes they're feeling sad, or they're angry, or they're frustrated with their lives, the empath keeps wanting to give and give and give more because that's how they feel valuable. And so the narcissist in those moments recognizes that they can take and take and take. At the start of a relationship, this makes both parties feel kind of valuable. It makes a narcissist feel like, hey, I'm getting love. It makes the empath feel like, hey, I'm getting value because I'm being used somewhere, so I'm important. They understand that, okay, this is the dynamics of the relationship. But as the relationship goes further and further and further, and this same dynamic is stretched and pulled and accelerated, the narcissist becomes more and more and more of a user of the other person's energy and affections and space. And the empath ends up being more and more of the person who's used. And ultimately, when you're used too much, you get into a strain of what we call abused, which is what the term is, abused, which is where this person now, the empath, their own hearts, their emotional state has been completely used and strained until a point where they feel like they're abused, and that they start to build resentment with the same person they established this relationship with, aka the narcissist. So if you really find value in what I'm talking about, I want you to click subscribe on my videos, because I'm coming up with a whole bunch of these videos which you'll really enjoy. So click subscribe and there's more content coming your way. Now we're on to point number 2 that you keep attracting a narcissist with, or narcissistic relationships, and that is probably that you suffer from low self-esteem. And that's okay. It's not an insult. It's not a crime. There was a time in my life where I was really hurting from low self-esteem and lack of self-worth. But here's what happens when you suffer from low self-worth or low self-esteem. You make poorer choices. You don't know how to make the choices that can really validate or value you for where you are, because you are now living on a lower rung in your human experience. And so at this point, you don't really know how to prioritize yourself. You don't know how to choose your own value or worth. And so you choose, I have this saying that you choose in your life from wherever you are. And if you're up here at a point where you're corresponding with high self-worth and high self-value, you're going to make relationship choices from there. But if you're in a point in your life where maybe past traumas, past experiences, past conditioning put you in a low self-worth place, then you will make relationship choices from there. And when you make choices of relationships from low self-worth, they will be unconsciously be relationships that, again, tend to use and abuse you, don't meet your needs, don't give you what you really want. This is a point of time where you may be really attracting narcissists in your life, where if you're already someone who's identified as someone who gives a lot, as someone who really wants to care for somebody else more than themselves, and then your self-worth is really low, you're going to attract someone who's going to trample trample all over you. And so in this place of where you have low self-worth, why it is you specifically attract a narcissist is because narcissists can almost like sniff this out. And so they recognize that they can flatter you, that they can make you feel good and give you a false sense of value. So if you are now with someone who can actually like manipulate you or recognize that, hey, by giving you a few compliments, by taking you places, by saying you dress nice, by love bombing you, that they can draw you into the relationship because you're at a stage where you can't really protect yourself or make good choices. So they recognize that by flattering you, you start to feel better. You think that by me starting to feel better, I should be in this relationship with this person. You've now got a cycle going in this relationship with this narcissist. Again, at the start, this feels really good. And so you're in this relationship with this narcissist who's manipulating you with all these words of like, you know, love and affection and this love bombing, and you feel really drawn into this relationship. So now you start to create the attachment. Now some level of the codependency also starts to come in. But as time goes by again with this narcissist, they start to recognize they've drawn you so close in. What if they start to take away all of those sources of self-worth that they gave you? What if they stop loving you so much? What if they stop giving you all those words of kindness? What if they stop, making you, inflating your sense of self-worth at this point? You suddenly start to feel really strained with the source of your validation is taken away. So you start again to feel used in this relationship, and you think, this is not the person that I met. This person's just using me. This person's just drawing me in for like their own value, to use me, to love bombing me. Maybe they're even breadcrumbing me at this point. And that can only happen if they find you at a point when your self-worth is low. So working on your self-worth is another really powerful defense mechanism from poor choices that you may unconsciously or subconsciously make in your life, from attracting people who may be unconsciously using you. And so the third point that I'm getting to, and this is a really powerful one, is that you lack boundary. Now, when you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist again is a person who uses or could abuse somebody else to develop their own value or to develop their own sense of like self-worth or whatever else they need, but they can only use someone who doesn't have a good protection mechanism. If you had a strong protection mechanism and you had strong boundaries that you were drawing in your own life, then you are protecting yourself from being drawn in to narcissists or being in a relationship with narcissists. But most of the time you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, it's at a point in your life where you don't have strong enough boundaries. So you allow them to treat you a certain way. You allow them to draw you into their trap. You allow them to inflate your sense of self-worth. You allow them to breadcrumb you because we don't have strong enough boundaries, or you don't have strong enough boundaries at that point to protect you against that kind of behavior. The other thing that narcissists also tend to do is gaslight people. But if you had a strong sense of boundaries for yourself, especially drawing a boundary against the treatment that you don't deserve and that the way you don't believe you deserve to be treated, you cannot allow someone to gaslight you. You draw a boundary very early on in the relationship, recognizing that what they're giving you, the falsifying of information they're giving you, making you feel crazy, you recognize for yourself, I don't really deserve this. I don't really want this in a relationship, and I don't need to be with someone who does this to me. But when we have poor boundaries, we allow ourselves to be roped in more and more into this relationship because now we're really starting to identify here. So if you got out for a relationship with a narcissist, or with anybody for that matter, in any kind of relationship, and you're hurting, I made a video on how to process the emotions of a breakup, how to work through a breakup, to cope through a breakup, which I'll link up in here, and I'll see you in that video.